All right, 1 second here. All right, we'll welcome on holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, as it is known. Again, want to welcome on holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers. We are in chapter 2, Mishna 15. This is part 27, probably part 28, 29, 30, as we work our way through here. Right? So here, what did the Mishnah say? Rabbi Eliezer would say, the honor of your fellow should be as precious to you as your own. Right? Do not be easy to anger. Repent one day before your death. Right? We spoke about that quite a bit over the last number of weeks. And next part of the Mishnah, we're going to start the next part of the Mishnah here. Next part of the Mishnah says, warm yourself by the fire of the sages, but beware lest you be burnt by its embers. Right? For there abides bite of a fox, sting of a scorpion. Their hiss is the hiss of a serpent. All the words are fiery coals. So let's go back to this part of the this part of the Mishnah, and what it's speaking about. So here the Mishnah says again, warm yourself by the fire of the sages. Right, but beware lest you be burned by his embers. Right, so, well, not only that, but you got to be aware of their going cold, lest you be burned for their bites, bite of a fox, right, the sting of a scorpion, hiss of a serpent, all the words of fiery coals. Yeah, so what exactly does this mean over here? So, one explanation is the Mishnah says, warm your fire by the fire of the sages. Yeah, learn by them. The Torah should be like fire, so to speak. Hopefully they have words of inspiration. Hopefully they know what they're talking about. They're giving over good information, etc. So, as long as, and we'll make this very clear, as long as they're within certain boundaries, right? Within the boundaries of Torah, then they deserve respect. Now that means, we'll just take it the other extreme. If someone, let's say, is a heretic, right? They go against God, they go against his Torah, they go against the prophecy of Moses. Yeah, I don't have to respect them. I don't have an obligation to respect them, right? If there's a heretic, see, people make this mistake. Say, oh, God loves everyone. No, he doesn't. Right? Let's make very clear. The King Solomon in Ecclesiastes says it's time to love, it's time to hate. Now we always say the Torah tells me I'm not allowed to hate a Jew in my heart. Technically, I could hate a non-Jew. Right? We'll get there. But I'm not allowed to hate a Jew in my heart. What if they do terrible things? What if they do really terrible things? Right? Very good. So if they do terrible things, what do we say? Yeah, you can hate what they do. Hating the person, right? It's a different issue. Right? If someone's that bad, right? Again, it's going to depend on what they do. But in general, we say you hate the act, not necessarily the person. There were great rabbis who fought against secular Jews and wayward Jews, whatever you want to call them. But when it's time to help, if they needed help, he was right there to help. Yeah, but there are times you have to come out. And we mentioned this many times. You got to come out very strong, against them for what they represent and the danger. Right? And, if we'll just put this in perspective. If you know what someone says is wrong, right, and it's pretty clear, they're fighting against Torah, they're fighting against mitzvahs, very good, right? Then, we understand a person should stay away from them. If someone comes, speaks very smooth, maybe even they look like an Orthodox Jew, etc. But really, their views are heretical. Really, they're leading people astray. Can't be quiet. Right? You're not allowed to be quiet. Right? They have to be called out for who they are. Now, would I say every second of every class someone gives, you got to do that? No. I'm not going to say that. People have to be warned. People for sure have to be warned. Right? So there are a lot of fakers out there. They, again, look like Orthodox Jews, but if they say things heretical, it's pretty clear. Okay. Right? It's pretty clear. If someone poses, quote unquote, as an Orthodox Jew, say they keep Shabbos, say they keep kosher, right? May even call themselves rabbi, yeah? But things they do go contradictory to Torah. Yeah? Again, some things are pretty obvious. Some things I would say are pretty obvious. Other things not as obvious. Right? So that's, anyone has any question, you ask. Things can sound strange. You can have people that, give classes, quote unquote, YouTube rabbis, have thousands, thousands of views and this and that. You can't listen to them. Right? Fact is always greater than, I say fact is greater than fiction. But you know what? Fiction sells. People like to hear what some people have to say. Okay. Now, I'll give you an example. Someone says, listen, there's this 3-year-old, and this kid plays with dolls. Yeah? 3-year-old boy plays with dolls. And you find out later over the years, he became a homosexual. So he says, you think God's going to strike him down? You think God's going to strike him down? Right? So this person says, come on, you could have seen it from a very young age. As it has to say, like this kid has a gene. Right? It's got a homosexual gene. We're going to keep this clean here. Right? So what happens? This person says, I know the other Orthodox community is going to be upset with me when I say this, but I have to speak the truth. Okay? It's got broad shoulders, won't speak the truth. Very good. But I know they're going to be upset with me because what I say seemingly goes in contradiction to what the Torah says. Right? The Torah in the book of Leviticus chapter 18, I'm going to get there one day, I don't know when. Right? I'm still in chapter 17, but we'll get to chapter 18. I'm actually going to hit the next verse tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Anyone who wants to be there, I'm going to hit the next verse in Exodus chapter 10. Leviticus chapter 17. It's going to be on verse 11. That's what we're going to start with. I mean, we're not going to get very far, but we're going to start there. Any case, the person says they're going to be upset with me because what do you do with the verse in Leviticus chapter 18? The verse in Leviticus states clear, can't be homosexual. Now, I had someone give me Webster's 8th definition, and Webster's 8th definition was that if you look at the verses, we hold that there's a juxtaposition of verses that they don't come by themselves. If I have a juxtaposition of verses, what do I have? I have the fact that there's a connection. I gave an example in Exodus chapter 37. I think it's 37 or 35. Talks about the building of the Mishkan. And beginning parts of Vayakil. And it says by building the Mishkan, you get all these verses, the building the tabernacle, the loops, the boards, the clasps, the pins, all these different things. And then the Torah says, you got to keep Shabbos. What's the connection? Rashi asks the question, what's the connection? Others ask the question. Answer is, anything that was done in the tabernacle and the Mishkan cannot supersede Shabbos. That means anything done in the tabernacle forbidden to do on Shabbos. The rabbis came along and said that not only is it forbidden, anything similar. Why anything similar? Because anything similar to be done on Shabbos, you might forget at Shabbos. And then you might come to a worse prohibition. Oh, people are going to say, doesn't the Torah say in the book of Deuteronomy, you're not allowed to add or subtract to the Torah? Yeah, Moses himself says, you're not allowed to add or subtract, right? You're not allowed to add or subtract to the Torah. There's putting a fence around the Torah, that's different. Make sure you don't come to a worse prohibition. Adding or subtracting means, I add extra tzitzis to my tzitzis, right? Extra fringes to my tzitzis, or an extra compartment for tefillin, phylacteries, whatever you want to call it. That's adding or subtracting. They make a fence around the Torah, that's not adding or subtracting, right? That's preserving, that's making sure you don't come to worse prohibitions. But even with that, you got an obligation to listen to them, right? There's no question. But again, you have to be within certain parameters. If you're not in certain parameters, there's a problem. So it comes on the Torah over there, right? In Leviticus chapter 18. So someone comes up with this great idea. It says, what's the verse talking about before it talks about homosexuality? Speaks about Molech, right? Speaks about idolatry. So therefore, the conclusion is, since it's juxtaposition of the verses, what would I say? I would say that there's a connection. So it must be homosexuality was only part of idolatry. It was only part of idolatry. If it's not part of idolatry, person's not doing idolatry, right? Then that should be all right. That's not a homosexual act, that's forbidden. It's only in conjunction with idolatry. There's only one problem. There's only one major problem with that statement. Problem is, if I look at the whole chapter in general, if I look at the previous verses, there are like 20 verses, 21 verses before that, right? Starting from the beginning of the chapter. What do the verses talk about? Forbidden relationships, immorality. Pretty clear, black on white. You uncover your father's nakedness, your mother's nakedness, your daughter-in-law's nakedness, this nakedness, that nakedness. It's all about immorality. All about immorality. Then you got a verse, right? Then you got a verse speaks about idolatry. Very good. Then it goes back to homosexuality, bestiality, and all that. So someone wants to say, because they got a juxtaposition of verses, I could make the claim. And again, I don't think it's good claim, but I could make the claim and say homosexuality is only forbidden if it's done in conjunction with idolatry. That's not what the Torah is talking about, right? Or let me say better, that is what the Torah is talking about. Only in conjunction with that. Yeah, Webster's 8th definition. But what do you do with the other 20 verses? Right? This is the problem. Yeah, okay, you have to ask the question. And commentaries ask the question, what's that verse doing there? That verse seems to be out of place. Very good. Yeah, good question. But even if it's out of place, you got to figure out why it's out of place. But what do you do with the other 20 verses? The other 20 verses tell me what? They're forbidden relationships. Totally forbidden relationships. Now, if I didn't have that verse there, and then the Torah tells me homosexuality is forbidden, bestiality is forbidden, yeah? Makes sense. You would even ask the question. Just like certain relationships are forbidden between men and women, also between men and men, right? Rabbinic prohibition of women and women, right? It doesn't say explicitly in the Torah, right? But we learn it out that's what they did in Egypt. When the Torah tells me, the evil that they did in Egypt, one of the things was by lesbianism. But again, we're going to keep this clean. So if I didn't have that verse, If I didn't have verse in the Torah to tell me about what idolatry, if I didn't have that verse, then this verse fits in clear. Because there are 20 other verses talking about immorality. So therefore, the next verse also talking about immorality. Very good. Yeah, so now, this person comes along and says, this kid's been playing with dolls since he was a kid. Right? This boy. So isn't it, why would we be shocked to find out it becomes homosexual later? It's already in his genes before. Yeah. So this person says, the Orthodox will be very upset with me. They're going to be very upset with me. Yeah, why would we be upset? Because what do you do with that verse? What do you do with the book of Leviticus chapter 18? It says clear you can't be homosexual. Right? Now, some people would say it's only the act. What about if you had homosexual thoughts? It's also bad. Even if you don't act on it, it's also bad. Not the same as acting on it. Acting on it's worse. But the fact you think about it's a problem. Even though a person will say, words in my heart don't mean anything. As the Talmud says many places. So if words in my heart don't mean anything, whatever I think shouldn't mean anything either. Especially if I don't act on it, okay. Yeah, the problem is there are two things. There are two things the person can get punished for, even if you don't act on it. Right? One of them is immorality. And what's the other one? Adultery. Right? Even if a person in their mind would say, this is my God. Right? They would say, JC is my God. Or Shul Fat Guy, Mr. Buddha is my God. Right? Fatso's my God, they would say in their mind. They don't say it literally. Right? They think it. Is that forbidden? Yes. Many rabbinic authorities hold 100% it's forbidden, but only by these two things. Only by immorality and only by, only by idolatry. Everything else, whatever I think, not necessarily going to be held against me. Now, forbidden thoughts are problematic. There's no question about it. They're problematic. Question is if you're going to get punished or not. If you continually think about it, yeah, that would be a problem. If a person had a thought in their mind, let's say a forbidden thought, they work hard to get rid of it, very good. If they continue to think about it, it's a problem. It's for sure going to be a problem. But if, someone will say, well, I had this thought, this bad thought, does that mean God's going to get me? So it depends. If a person try to get rid of the thought, try to think of other things, Torah thoughts, whatever, good. You worked hard to get rid of it. If a person started thinking about it, start fantasizing this, that's forbidden. Right? That is when it's going to be forbidden. But in any case, I don't want to get sidetracked there. In any case, someone's going to say, this kid was playing with dolls since he was 3. Even if he was playing with dolls since he was 3, we shouldn't be shocked he's homosexual. I know the Orthodox will be upset with me. Yeah, we're going to be upset with you because that's heresy. That goes against exactly what the Torah says. Because the Torah says you can't be homosexual. Right? Because it's not his fault. Whose fault is it? A doctor once told me, they've proven, of course they haven't, but they wanted to claim, it's been proven there's a homosexual gene. And what if there was, right? Let's say I would agree, which I don't, but let's say there's a homosexual gene. Now, what's someone going to say? If they act on it, it's not their fault. They're under onus, right? It's something they can't control. It's part of them. They were born that way, right? I had someone tell me this a while ago. This person, he was born that way. So as they're like yelling and screaming, so I said, science hasn't proven it. And they're still screaming. I go, science hasn't proven it. Yeah, they backed off a little bit. They go, doesn't matter. I love it when people talk. They talk with authority about things they don't know anything about, right? But not only that, they're going to disregard, the holy science. Holy doctors, they're going to disregard right? And they're going to say, I don't care what the doctors say. Now, true, we don't always care what the doctor says. That's okay. Doctors aren't always right. Science for sure is not always right, right? No question. People put a lot of fact into science. A lot of things they haven't proven. A lot of things. A lot of things they don't know. I'll say one thing by COVID. I'm not going to get into COVID or conspiracy theories. But one thing, what did COVID show beyond the shadow of a doubt? Doctors didn't know what they were doing. They know what their social distance, they put on masks, do this, do that, nothing worked. Essentially nothing worked. Right? So with all the advances in science, we praise science a lot for their medical advances. Very good. They don't know everything. Plenty of things they don't know. Right? And many things that just scratch the surface at best. Right? I'm not a big fan of science, in general. But, I said, even according to you, science hasn't proven it. Right? I stopped them dead in their tracks, but they just kept coming though. They just kept coming afterwards. Right? So at the end of the day, so this person says it's not his fault. Okay. Now let's analyze the question. Right? If it's a kid, it's not punishable. Yeah. Kid's not punishable to the age of 13. If he's a boy, 12 is the girl up to the age of 20. Yeah. So if you're going to say he's born that way, you're right, it's not punishable. It's not the sin of the person. If a child was born, God forbid, with a dreaded disease, or was born, mentally challenged, let's say, or deformed in other ways, is that the child's fault according to Torah? Is that the child's fault? It's not the child's fault. Why isn't it the child's fault? Because it's not punishable, right? Child is not punishable. Person's only punishable to the age of 13 or 20, right? To the age of 13 or 12 and up to 20. So it's not their fault. It's what their soul has to, it's what their soul has to go through. Right? This is Kabbalah 101. Talking about, reincarnation. Sometimes the soul has to come back in order to fix up certain things. So it gets put in a messed up body or a sick body or whatever it may have to go through. Right? Whatever it may have to go through in this world. But even if a person, now let's analyze this for a second. Even if a person was born with certain character traits. We are, DNA, we have DNA. We have, a lot of things from our parents that they gave us for better or for worse. Right? Our DNA comes from them. So we could have, a lot of setbacks based on what our DNA is. Okay. Now, is God going to have that against us? What can a person say after 120 years? God's going to say, how come he didn't do this? Or he didn't do that or whatever. Right? Or why'd you, do all these different things? So I say I was born that way. Right? I came from a broken home. I was born that way. You created me that way. Now, what could God say? Put on my funny George Burns glasses, my funny mustache. What could God say over here? If I was playing God, I'd say, right. I gave you all these character traits. I gave you this DNA. I didn't tell you to act on it. I didn't tell you to go, to do this and do that, do the other thing. I didn't tell you to do that. You act on it except it's part of my nature. Okay. It's part of your nature. We're in this world to be tested. So some people, are going to have certain things going to be more difficult for them. Certain things less difficult for them. Right? But God's saying, I don't want you to act on it. Even if you're born that way. So it's a catch-22. Right? In a certain way. Because what are we going to say? You're going to say, it's not my fault. You created me this way. Yeah, so a person, let's say, anger. It's good thing. A person got, 10 doses of anger. Now, aren't we in this world to fix that? Aren't we in this world to fix other bad character traits? We can be given them. They can be part of our DNA. Sometimes things are easier, sometimes things are harder, but we're programmed in a certain way. Okay. But he doesn't want us to act on it. He gives us the tools to try and fix it, to try and be better. Very good. Yeah, but that doesn't mean I have to act on it. Now, a person, let's say, has a certain tendency. Like, they can say, like people say, this doctor said, it's a gene, the homosexual gene. Well, we can have a lot of bad genes. Yeah, we can have I don't want to give charity genes. We could have I don't want to help others genes, anger genes, gaiva genes. Gaiva meaning being conceited, right? Lack of self-esteem genes, many things. We can be programmed. We can do a lot of things to ourselves also. That's a different issue. Talking about where certain things are programmed within inside us. So if it's programmed within inside us, person will say it's harder to fight. You're right. Right? So a person could claim, it's a bad claim, but a person can claim, you made me this way. You wired me in a certain way. God's going to say, okay, you're right. I wired you in a certain way. Did I tell you to act on it? I didn't tell you to act on it. I did not tell you to act on it. So some people have certain things, they're going to be much harder for them, to fix. Other people, other things. Depends. It depends on the person. Right? It can also depend on what you go through in life. So a lot of times, the Ramban, I think it's the Ramban in the book of Job, that the Ramban says, we're going to get upstairs after 120 years. We're going to say, God, why'd you do this? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? God's going to say, I didn't do that. Don't you remember the Gemara says, you want to go on the right path, I will, God's going to help you. I'll help you. You want to go on the wrong path? I don't have to stop you. I could. You want to make bad decisions? Okay. I don't have to stop you. Right? So a lot of times, someone told me this last week or a few weeks ago, you get a lot of people blaming God. Okay, who else are going to blame? There's only one other person they can blame, themselves. Right? They don't want to blame themselves. They don't want to blame society. They don't want to blame other things. They'll blame God. Very good. But God can say, I have nothing to do with this. I let them do certain things, and okay. Right? I let you do certain things. You did it. I didn't have to stop you. I didn't have an obligation to stop you. Now, this is complex. Exactly how this works. Certainly on an individual basis. Right? I'm not talking about, the bigger picture. But in general, right? In general, we can make decisions. We think we're going in the right path. It's evil inclination leading us astray. Or maybe societal pressure or other things. And what happens? We fall in the pit. The person can say, God, you put me in this pit. And God's like, I didn't put you in any pit. I didn't tell you to do this. You did it yourself. I just didn't stop you. I didn't feel I had no obligation to stop you. Okay. Right? But we're going to have claims. They're not going to be claims at all. Not going to be claims at all. So, comes along someone of great influence. Right? And this person says, I know, again, back to this point, I know the elder Orthodox being upset with me. This person is born and bred that way. It's not his fault. They've been playing with dolls since he was 3. Not his fault. He's got a certain disposition. Not his fault. Couldn't we all say this? Couldn't we all say, yeah, I've been given a disposition of too much anger, or too much I don't want to help others, or too much I don't want to give charity, or too much whatever. Fill in the bad character. Couldn't we make such a claim? We can make such a claim. We can say 100%, I got too much of this, too much of that. What can I do? That's what I was given. Right? The Mishna Pirke Avos says, you're born against your will, you die against your will. The Kaufman would say in parentheses, you still have to live. Yeah, we're not in control. Are we in control who our parents are? No. Siblings? No. Socioeconomic situation? No. We think we're in control, certainly not in control of that. Certainly growing up, we're not in control. We're not in control. We have to realize many things we're not in control of. But you have to live in this world. So it could be someone's exposed to certain things, and they say, okay, well, let me try it. How many people became smokers because they want to try it out? How many people, had trouble with alcohol because they wanted to try it? Like I say, everybody, I'm just saying, Can happen. It for sure can happen. But you can't make such a claim. You can't make such a claim and say, this person's born that way, it's not his fault. Whose fault is it? He might have a certain disposition, or she might have a certain disposition. Okay. Yeah, the way they're brought up, what's inside of them. Okay, they're at a disadvantage, let's say. We're all at a disadvantage in certain ways. So it depends what it is, okay? Even if we're going to say that, what's the point of people having these things inside of them? Their DNA. And how they, and how they're wired. The purpose is, if they're negative things, if they're potentially negative things, then the purpose is to overcome them. Right? So people would ask the question, if that's true. If this is really true, why would God do that? See, Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7 says God created evil. Now the Christians blatantly mistranslate it, because for them, Satan can't create, sorry, just gave it away, right? God, how can God create evil? So they mistranslate it. Where does evil come from if you're a Christian? Satan. He's the one who causes all the evil in the world. Very good. God is all good, so he's a fallen angel, does whatever he wants, causes havoc. So people make the mistake and say, okay, if Isaiah says, and Isaiah's a prophet, if Isaiah says that God created evil, must be God is evil. No. Why did God create evil? So the Ramchal says, Derech Hashem, in the way of God. Others say the same thing. Created evil to test people. He gave people the ability to tap in if they want. He doesn't want them to. Right? There are a number of prohibitions in the Torah against sorcery. Yeah, sorcery is very much alive and well today. Yeah. Well, why doesn't God want you to tap into it? It's very easy to tap into, right? At least from the dark side. Say a few incantations. You have a tremendous amount of power. You don't have to be on a high level at all. To tap into the evil is very easy. Right? God wants you to. Right? If God allows it, let's say better. If God wants it or allows it, right? He'll allow you to tap in. He might stop you, but he allows you to tap in. Does he want you to tap in? No. Right? Why not? What's the problem? The problem is you're playing with creation. Even for non-Jews, playing with creation is a problem. Right? There's a whole question, if you take a peach and a plum, put it together, and make a nectarine. For a Jew, it's a total prohibition. I can get benefit from it. I can eat it. Right? But I'm not allowed to do it. Non-Jew also. The whole question. They're allowed to do it or not. Seemingly, it should be forbidden also. Why? Because you're playing with creation. Now, if I take a donkey and a horse and I put them together and I make a mule, a mule's a tremendously strong animal, very good. What's the problem with the mule? Sterile. Right? Now, is that a coincidence? I don't think it's a coincidence. God creates something very, very powerful. Very, very He allows people to create it. They make this very, very strong animal. Right? Very, very strong animal, very good. It's only one problem. It cannot reproduce itself. Now, people would say, you think that's a punishment? That it's sterile? You got a better explanation? Why can't it reproduce? You have so many animals in the world, and fish, and I don't know, creepy crawly things, and who knows what. They got the ability to reproduce one way or another. Yeah. However it works. They have that ability. Yeah. They have that ability. If they have that ability, why does this not have the ability? According to science, why not? So they'll tell you scientifically why. Medically why. What genes it doesn't have to be able to reproduce. Okay? Isn't that a very interesting coincidence? Yeah. So we would say that's part of the divine plan. Okay, he allows it to be created. He allowed these things to happen. Very good. But it doesn't allow them to reproduce. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. Very rare you see something like that. You see something that's created that can't reproduce. Right? There are species that die out. Right? Simple explanation is God doesn't need them anymore. Right? He allows them come into existence, put them in existence for whatever reason, and now he disregarded them. Right? You can say the same thing by, dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, it's not a contradiction. It could have been the previous world. Right? God was busy creating, destroying worlds before he created this world. They could have been part of that world. So why didn't God allow them to come to this world? He didn't need them anymore. Right? Not necessarily a contradiction. He didn't need them. For whatever reason, when the species dies out or is going to die out or whatever, let's say for argument's sake it dies out. That shows what? God doesn't need it. He doesn't need it in this world. Everything has a purpose. We don't understand a lot of things, and what the purpose is, right? But they have a purpose. The appendix, I think they're finally figuring out what the purpose of the appendix is. But everyone agrees that if your appendix bursts, you go straight to the hospital, have an operation, right? That could kill you. That literally could kill you. Yeah. So, the only piece of skin, or flesh that we have, on our body that there's an obligation to take it off, that's foreskin of a male, right? 8 days, come into the world, very good. That's part of the body has to be taken off, right? That's obligatory. That's obligatory to take off. That's it. Every other part of the body, right? Because, the purpose of the person, what's the purpose? The purpose is to have it taken off. Now, there'll be a disagreement of opinion between doctors, like every few years. You take out the foreskin, it's good against cancer, it's not good against cancer, right? There'll always be this debate. But the Torah says clear, on the 8th day, all things being equal, the child's healthy, welcome to the covenant. Yeah, taking off that foreskin. Yeah, that's the whole point, to be taken off. Again, if you go according to those doctors that say, that let's say it helps against cancer. Okay, see a purpose. See a purpose. Take it off. Certainly for a Jew, non-Jew, okay, they want to take it off, fine. They don't have to do the exact same, way we do it, fine. But let's say the doctors agree, that's no purpose. Doesn't do anything. Right? That skin does not protect anything. So if it doesn't protect anything, what's it there for? Yeah, so that would be the question. Right? So there are plenty of things, again, just my knock on science here. There are plenty of things in the world that, science doesn't understand, so to speak, and that's okay. Science is a work in progress also. But they're finding out new things all the time. Basically just scratching the surface in the world. Okay. So even if that's true, there's a lot they don't know. So here, whether it's good against cancer, not good against cancer, what does God say? The Jewish people got an obligation to take it off, right? That's it. That's your obligation. That's what you got to do. So, speaking about that has a purpose. That has a purpose. But again, what's inside of a person, right? What's inside of a person at the very beginning, for sure, is going to depend on the DNA of his parents. Good. So there are a lot of things that we are made up of our parents. We have no choice, right? That is our makeup, but who says I have to act on it? If it's negative, right? If it's negative. So the Torah tells me that the children bear the sin of the parents, right? So everyone can ask the question, how does that work? That should never work. Child's not liable, right? Forget whether liable for punishment or not. That's not the point, right? Why should a child be liable for what the parent does? There are things that can affect a child, right? Forever, generations, let's say. So what does that mean? If a child goes in a negative way, or the parents, let's say parents have certain bad character traits, child goes in that same direction. So that's the curse. That's the curse the child pays for the sin of the parent. But if the child goes in a different direction, in a positive direction, and goes in that direction against the negative things that the parents do, then the curse doesn't apply. The curse shouldn't apply. But it's a good question, though. All right, because again, you look at what the Torah says. It says, yeah, for a number of generations, they'll pay the price. Why should they pay the price? Why is there are certain things that would pay a serious price, a collective price. right? The Jewish people pay. See, by the sin of the golden calf, right? We've spoken about that. That was done by the mixed multitude, by the Erev Rav, right? All the converts came out of Egypt or from other places, right? And they were wiped out. So they're going to say the entire Jewish people should have been wiped out, right? Markesher, what's the connection? Right? God says, if I dwell amongst the Jewish people, right? If I dwell amongst the Jewish people, God says, I'll kill everybody. I'll start. So he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he tells Moses himself, I'll start with you. I'll make a new nation out of you. Moses is like, no dice. You made a promise you're not going to wipe out the Jewish people. So, you can't do that. So they made a compromise. Right? What was the compromise? God's not going to wipe out the Jewish people in one shot. Instead, there's going to be collective punishment for what they did. And therefore, the generation that, for all generations, going to suffer for the sin of the golden calf. A person can say, but I wasn't there. I didn't do it. Some of my forefathers might have done it. Okay. But at the end of the day, you see one event, pretty serious event. God says, okay, right? You all deserve to be wiped out. Even if the people were killed, doesn't matter. Right? He wants to wipe out the entire Jewish nation. He says, if I dwell amongst the Jewish people, that's what's going to happen. Now, he wants to dwell amongst the Jewish people, so they have to come up with some sort of compromise. All right? So the compromise was that he didn't start with Moses, he didn't wipe everyone out, but there's collective punishment. So the Jewish nation suffers, generation after generation for the sin of the golden calf. So the punishment is less. It's meted out, though, over time, over a very long period of time. Because if it was done in a very short amount of time, you guys be lucky. You wouldn't have to listen to me. Right? I wouldn't be here. Right? Essentially, it wouldn't be here. So there's such a thing also. As that. But again, even if a person is made up of DNA, and the DNA comes from both parents, and they have certain things they have more of affinity to that are negative, they are going to pay the price for acting on it. Because God in no way, shape, or form wants you to act on things that are negative. That's not what he wants. Right? He's not interested. He's not interested. He's not interested, in us doing things that we shouldn't do. Even if we have a tendency towards it. Right? Like, who cares? Who cares if you have a tendency towards it or not? Your obligation is to do what God wants you to do and go in the right way. That's what he wants. He doesn't want anything more, anything less. That's what he wants. You tell me, I got tendency this way or that way, the other way. Okay. Right? That might be true. But even so, to act on it, he doesn't want. It's a test, right? Life is a test. Right? Either we go in the right direction, we go in the wrong direction. Right? There's really nothing in between. Right? Until I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing. There's no such thing as staying neutral, as we would say. Either going up or going down. Right? That's it. Right? So yeah, a bunch of questions here. Let me deal with them. One is, should you always look for stringencies? Why? Why should you always look for stringencies? You don't have to always look for stringencies. There are times that for sure you can be lenient. Depends when and what and where. Right? But I would say, first of all, it depends on the case. Right? It's a case-by-case basis. Some things, we would be more stringent on. Other things maybe we'd be less stringent on. It depends. Always looking for stringencies? I wouldn't say that. There are times that stringencies would not help you here. Right? For a lot of things. Right? Again, it depends what the case is. Depends what the case is. Sometimes you'd have to be stringent, even if everyone's going to laugh at you or make fun of you, but that's what you have to do. Right? There are other times where things are pretty clear. Right? Black and white. I can do this. I'm not allowed to do that. Right? Different issue. And there are things we could say that, okay, could go either way. Could very much go either way. The question is if certain things, let's say you have a doubt. Let's say you have a doubt about something. So certain things, if it's a Torah prohibition, then we say you should be stringent. If it's something a rabbinical prohibition, or something rabbinic, let's say I have a doubt whether I made a blessing or not. So you say, okay, let me fix it. Let me make a blessing. So we have a Talmudic dictum. Talmudic dictum says, Safek brachos lahakil. If I have a doubt whether I made a blessing, we're lenient. You say, shouldn't I be stringent in such a case? No. Why not? Because if I say God's name for no reason, it's taking God's name in vain. But, a person will say, I got an obligation. I want to fix it up. Right? A person, I don't know, was drinking tea, coffee. They don't remember if they made a blessing or not. If you know for sure you didn't make a blessing, if you're a Jew, you got to go back and make a blessing. If you have a doubt, you can assume you made the blessing. Say, but what if you're not sure? So what? Either eat something else in the same blessing category, have it in mind, right? Or you can eat without a blessing. Well, I can eat without a blessing because we have a doubt. I have a doubt over here. If I have a doubt, I'm not going to be stringent. So, it depends. Always being stringent? No. You have to rely on leniency. Any kashrus organization, by the way, whatever a person eats, anything processed or, meat or whatever they're going to eat, there are leniencies that every kashrus agency relies on, even the best kashrus agencies that they rely on. Right? Why do they rely on them? For a lot of different reasons. Yeah. So some things will be stringent on, very stringent on, some things will be more lenient on, depends. Right? Obviously, it depends what it is. On an individual basis, I would say the same thing. It depends on the case. If a person has a doubt, you want to make sure there's no doubts, right? You want to make sure there's clarity. But sometimes, even when I have a doubt, I can't be stringent. Because if I'm stringent, then that causes other problems. The example is if a person has a doubt, they made a blessing. They're going to say, okay, I want to fix it up. I'm going to be stringent. I'll make a new blessing. No. That's taking God's name in vain. That's making a blessing I don't need. Right? So always looking for stringencies? No. People think, my Rebbe, that's all he does is look for stringencies. Not true. He calls it the way he sees it. There's some things he's lenient on. There are things he's stringent on, plenty of things he's stringent on. But again, he's not stringent to be stringent. He's stringent because he feels there's a need to be stringent in that case. Or, another case, or a third case, or whatever it is. But not just because, there's an idea to be stringent, no such thing. Right? It depends on the case. Right? It depends on the case. That's what I would say. We're in control of our Yerushalayim only. No, yeah. Yeah. We have control. We have control of how much fear of heaven we have. We can pray that God helps us. God illuminates our eyes, makes us see where, we should be careful. We should have, careful fear of heaven. There are people that, I was just reading something earlier, a great rabbi made a blessing. Every time he said God's name, he had fear. You could see the fear in his eyes. Yeah. You don't see it so much today. Right? By great people you do, but most people that make a blessing, you don't necessarily see it. But yeah, we're in control of that. Right? God's in control of everything else. But doesn't he know how much fear of heaven we're going to have? We have that control. We for sure have that control. But fear of heaven doesn't necessarily mean for every last thing I'm looking for stringency. There are people like this. There are people who love stringencies. They'll take on stringency after stringency. Again, depends what it is. I'm not saying to be lenient for the sake of being lenient. I'm not saying that. Definitely not saying that. But I would say there's need for stringency. In certain cases. Again, I'm not saying across the board. Depends what it is. But are we in control of how much fear of heaven? Sure. We are in control of that. 100% we're in control of that. Someone asks, We're not supposed to mix human DNA, for example, people with different ethnicities, right? Say your dad was Jewish. I don't know about that. That's not a problem, right? If you say, that's what the Nazis, Yamach Shemam Zichron said. May they be brought out, may they rot wherever they are. Their claim, I mean, they were brainwashed, totally brainwashed, but, their claim was we're a pure race. And other groups are not pure races, right? Jews, gypsies, blacks, others. They threw everyone under the bus. That wasn't like that. Right? So, yeah, that's what they thought, but isn't that racist? That's racist 100%. Right? That's racism 101. Right? Different, ethnicities. Is there a problem to mix them? I don't see why not. Unless there were, other things going on, but what, even if you mix other ethnicities, I don't see the issue. Someone is, I don't know, a French person married a Spanish person or whatever. Yeah. So they have, generations of Spanish, French kids or whatever. Is that forbidden? I don't know why. I don't know why it'd be forbidden. Right? We're talking about, mixing things. We're talking about plants, talking about animals. Humans, different issue. Mixing ethnicity is not a problem. Cloning, yeah, that would be an issue. Cloning people would be an issue. Mixing ethnicities, I don't see what the problem would be. Right? And I don't see any. That's not playing with creation. My Rebbe was telling me many years ago there was a certain fish that was a non-kosher fish, and I don't know. They mated it with a kosher fish. Now, what happens? All the offspring of that fish now had scales and fins. So I got a new breed of fish, but there's one problem. This breed of fish, or this new breed of fish, we said we have a general Talmudic dictum that says anything comes out from something that's not kosher is not kosher. Yeah. So this non-kosher fish happened to mate with a kosher fish. But whatever comes out of that non-kosher fish is non-kosher. So now that offspring should be kosher. But it's got scales and fins. Totally genetically modified. Right? Because the Torah says any kosher fish is going to have scales and fins. You're not going to have a species of kosher fish that has scales and not fins. Right? And that's never been proven. Right? There's never been a problem, so to speak. That they've never found a species, a fish that has scales and not fins. Another reason the Torah's got to be true, because how did Moses know that? The entire world is 70% water. Not much money and expedition and people Moses would have had to send all over the world to know such a thing. And all the oceans, all over the world, 70% of the world? Yeah. Could be one proof that the Torah is true. He wouldn't know such a thing. Impossible to know such a thing. Unless someone else gave him that information. Right? So, yeah, that's a problem. That is a serious problem. I'm taking something kosher, non-kosher, putting it together, and the thing is kosher. It's got kosher, what do you call it? Character traits. Right? It's got scales and fins. But the other fish wasn't kosher. Anything that comes out from something not kosher is not kosher. It's a problem. Right? That's a problem. But again, in this case, ethnicity, mixing ethnicity, technically nothing wrong with it. What if someone was Asian, was black, was Hispanic? Let's say they convert. Yeah, so really their soul was Jewish. Yeah. How their soul became a non-Jewish soul, okay, that's Kabbalah 101 or 101A. But now they convert. They're 100% a pure convert. Yeah. Now they marry somebody. Let's say they marry somebody. Marry someone white. Yeah. They marry someone white. Now what about those offspring? They're marrying someone permissible. That's okay. Right? that's going to be okay. Again, if it's a proper conversion. But you could say, well, you get a lot of these fake conversions, and you could have that also, right? You could also have different ethnicities, marrying in. Could have that. You definitely could have that. Now, if God didn't want it, he'd stop it. He wouldn't allow them to meet or whatever, right? He'd make sure it didn't happen. But obviously, he allowed it to happen. Now, is that a good thing? Now, obviously, fake conversion is not a good thing, right? For sure. But in general, if again, a person had a proper conversion, they were a person of color, they were Hispanic or whatever. Yeah. So now they're full-fledged Jews, and they marry someone not of their same type, right? All those different ethnicities coming in, okay. But if God allows it, then it shouldn't be a problem, right? Wouldn't be a problem. Yeah, someone asked, was just with animals, that I answered. But for sure, a Jew must not mix with a non-Jew. Yeah, that's a problem. There are a lot of laws, especially when it comes to food in general, that Jews shouldn't have contact with non-Jews. What's the reason they shouldn't have contact? Well, it's a simple reason: intermarriage. Right, it'll lead to intermarriage. Now, that being the case, what do we see? We see beyond the shadow of a doubt the biggest problem. So I always mention, I still think it's the biggest problem to the Jewish people today, and that is intermarriage assimilation. Right? 60-70% intermarriage disaster. Absolute disaster. So that's exactly the reason. You shouldn't drink with non-Jews, shouldn't cook with non-Jews, or let them cook for you. Right? In general, because that leads to what? Closeness. So the less we have contact, the better. The problem is we're mixed in this world. We go to the university, some people. You work with them in the job force. You're out there, you see them. Because you have minimal correspondence, if possible. If you work with them, you got to set up boundaries. For sure, you have to set up boundaries. If not, you can say we're so different, we're so this. But again, people become friendly at work. That's what happens. How are you? What's new? What's this? You got to set up boundaries. Right? You got to set up boundaries. If you don't set up boundaries, anything could happen. You're going to say, come on, how could things happen? Right? Why would things happen? Because they can happen. Right? Because they can happen. No question. So, we're talking about even people very strong in their Judaism. Other things could be going on. Their guard could be down. Yeah, got to be careful. So, this intermingling, what does it lead to? Intermarriage. Exactly what it leads to. What do you think? It's like, oh, sorry, it's really against my religion, whatever, but they don't believe in it. They don't really believe it. It's not going to stop them. It's for sure not going to stop them, right? It's always I'd love to get together with you, this, that, but my Judaism is very important. So, you might have some people willing to die, but they, for their Judaism, they have no idea what the Judaism is. But is that really today? Or back in my generation? Way back? Is that going to stop someone from intermarrying? Not at all. Because the parents aren't going to put their foot down. They don't want to lose their kids, or God forbid, their future grandkids. If some people so assimilate, it doesn't bother them. It's okay. So my kid married a non-Jew, big deal, right? So, they would have married a Jew, okay. They didn't. But they can't say anything against it. Otherwise, they're racist. I had someone tell me this. I said, why do you think it's bad? They're pretty secular. They're pretty secular in general. So I said, why do you think it's bad for a Jew to marry a non-Jew? Like, what do you mean? Jews can't, Jews shouldn't marry non-Jews. But I said, why? They couldn't pinpoint it. They're like, but you agree. They asked me, that don't you agree Jews should marry a non-Jew? I said, yeah, but you don't have any good reason. You're just saying because you're Jewish. And you should they should marry non-Jews. That's being racist. I said, so basically you're a racist. They're like, but don't you agree? They got kind of upset when I called them a racist. Right? So they said, well, don't you believe you're not allowed to marry non-Jew? I said, yeah. So 100%. And they said, why do you believe it's forbidden to marry non-Jew? Because the Torah tells me. Because God tells me a Jew can't marry a non-Jew. Period. Nothing against non-Jews. Jews can't marry non-Jews. Right? Torah says it many, many times. And if you have a 60-70% chance that Jews are going to marry non-Jews, that's the end of Judaism right there. That will be the end of a major amount of Judaism right there. Yeah, if you're not going to be an Orthodox Jew, you'll disappear. That's the way it is. Right? That's exactly the way it is. So the more interaction we have with non-Jews, the worse it is. The more interaction we have with secular Jews. Yeah, it can also have a negative effect on a person. But here we're specifically talking about non-Jews. Very good. Yeah. So with non-Jews, that's the issue. Right? That's the issue. But if they want to convert, they want to have a proper conversion. Okay. But remember, a person cannot convert for any ulterior motive. Can't convert because you want to marry a Jew. Yeah, that's forbidden. And to convert because you believe the Torah is true. You believe this is your path. This is what you should do. Right? That would be your obligation. Right? So anyone who wants to convert, sure. But intermingling, that's the problem. That's a huge problem. Still facing that problem today. Yeah, someone says, why is mixing seeds forbidden, but eating the fruits are allowed? Same thing. In other words, mixing seeds is forbidden in Israel or outside of Israel. But the difference is, even if a person did it, which is forbidden, right? A Jew will make it easy. A Jew does it. So we understand it's forbidden to do. Okay. Now, even though it's forbidden to do, what's the issue? The issue is, can I get benefit from it? Not everything a person does that's forbidden, you're allowed to get benefit from it. Depends on the case. If I take milk and meats, I put them together, then you realize, oh, I got a forbidden mixture of milk and meat, so I'll give it to a non-Jew. Can't do that. That's getting benefit. Right? Torah says, don't cook a calf in its mother's milk. Says it 3 times. So the rabbis learn out, you can't cook it even if no one eats it. You can't eat it, and you're not allowed to give it to someone else. Can't give it to a non-Jew. Can't get benefit. Right? It's forbidden to get benefit. Right? So, and so there are certain things I'm not allowed to get benefit from if I did it. First thing, let's say desecrate Shabbos on purpose. Yeah? Can you get benefit from that? So there are things that maybe the person can get benefit from it, other people can get benefit from it, or can't get benefit from it on Shabbos. You have to wait till after Shabbos, the amount of time it took to do it. Depends on the case. Right? It depends on the case, but there are certain things. Let's say someone desecrates Shabbos on purpose, that either in some cases you won't be able to get benefit at all. Nobody can ever get benefit from it, whatever it may be. Yeah, so it depends. In this case, even though it's forbidden to do, the rabbis tell us, okay, even if it's forbidden to do, I can still get benefit. Why did they get benefit out of this and not something else? That's a good question. Right? That's a good question. Why is mixing milk and meat worse? Good question. Not sure why that should be worse, because I got 2 entities that are permissible. I got kosher meat and kosher milk. Why can't I put them together? Right? It's a chok. It doesn't make any sense. Right? Like most of the Torah doesn't make any logical sense. But there the Torah says can't get benefit from it. So idolatry, I get it. Something that was used for idolatry, can't get benefit from it. That makes sense. Because that's a very severe prohibition. That the Torah tells me clear. It's a very severe prohibition. It tells me many places. So I would say the same thing by what do you call it? I would say by idolatry. Now, there's certain things also you can't get benefit from. Let's say sabbatical year stuff. Let's say someone in Israel worked the land during sabbatical year during Shemitah. Can't eat it. A Jew can't eat it. I'm sure a non-Jew can't eat it. You can get benefit from it. Right? No one should get benefit from it. So you say, what's the difference? Why sabbatical year? We just read in last week's parsha, 2 weeks ago, right? That Parshas Bahar talks about Shemitah, talks about sabbatical year, and it says that this command was given on Mount Sinai. Its commentaries ask, everything was given on Mount Sinai, right? Every last mitzvah is given on Mount Sinai. So why is sabbatical year any different? Why is it any better than any other mitzvah, or stronger than any other mitzvah? So what's the simple answer? Think about it. They lived in an agricultural society. You tell them they can't work the land. In Israel, doesn't apply outside of Israel. In Israel, you can't work the land. What are they going to eat? After that seventh year comes, you're taking all the crops from the 6th year or whatever, right? Whatever comes in, comes in. What are you going to eat the 7th year? You got to leave the land fallow. Can't work it. What do I see? You need an unbelievable amount of emunah. You need a tremendous amount of, faith and belief in God over here. Because without that, forget it. God's going to say, yeah, I'll give you a bumper crop in the 6th year. If it never happened, no one's going to keep it. No one in the world's going to keep it. But it's a hard mitzvah. Why? Because that's your whole livelihood. That is your whole livelihood over here, right? Is exactly exactly that mitzvah. So then the question is, does this apply everywhere? So simple answer is it should. The question is, does it apply everywhere? Right? Does it apply everywhere? Right, that's going to be the question. Right, so let's see. Right, so Torah says you're not allowed to mix, right? Right, it says mix wool and linen, right? You're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to sow your vineyard together, right? Variety of species, Book of Deuteronomy, right? Says that also general prohibitions, not allowed to crossbreed animals, various plants, etc. Now, there is a debate over here, or there is an issue about prohibition of mixing seeds only applies in Israel, right? With the exception of grapes, right? Prohibition with the exception of grapes applies only in the land of Israel. That's one thing. Grafting trees, that applies everywhere, not just in the land of Israel. Also not planting grape seeds, other kinds of seeds. You can't get benefit from them. That's something you can't get benefit from as well. So that, if you had like a vineyard of, let's say, grapes and other things mixed together, that's called Klaya Kerem. That only applies in Israel. Others say no. Torah says really it should only be in Israel, but sages say that it's everywhere. Right? It's going to be everywhere as well. Crossbreeding animals, that doesn't matter where it is. That it's going to apply in all places. Also, seemingly not working two animals of different species together, like pure animal, let's say kosher animal, non-kosher animal. That applies everywhere. That also applies anywhere. Not mixing wool and linen also applies everywhere. Rashi learns, we'll just make it simple. Rashi learns over here that it's a chok. It's laws that have no explanation. Some say it's only by shatnez, mixing wool and linen doesn't have an explanation, but other things do have an explanation. So again, it depends. It depends. But for certain things, let's say Klai Kerem maybe only applies in Israel. Others say it applies everywhere, and other things also apply pretty much everywhere else. That's what I would say on that. Let me see if there are other questions here. 1 second. If a Jew marries a non-Jew, they'll be potentially taken away, sort of practically adultery. Wait, one of the reasons Jews aren't supposed to marry non-Jews for that reason, because then they'll have kids that go after idolatry, right? But you do have an issue. Let's say a Jewish woman marries a non-Jew, the child's technically Jewish, even though the Gemara says a different number of explanations. They say he's blemished. One explanation says he's a mamzer, it's got stats of like a bastard child or whatever. But we hold, practically speaking, that if it's a Jewish woman, the child is Jewish, but it's got a what do you call it? It has a blemish on the soul, right? It doesn't sound good. Even if the child's Jewish. Like I had someone once tell me, it's like, well, that kid's going to be Jewish because the mother's Jewish. Technically. Right? That's all that matters. But spiritual terms, there are many rabbinic authorities that hold that at some point that child has to go through a conversion. Yeah. So that means it's a problem. Even if the kid is Jewish, it's blemished. To take the blemish off, they go through conversion. Right? Not everyone's going to require it, but again, it'd be a good thing to do to take off that blemish if that was the case. Or let's say a person's father is Jewish. We don't hold Judaism, at least by us, by the Orthodox, we don't hold the patrilineal descent. We don't hold to go after the father, but person has part of those genes. Okay, but technically speaking, still not Jewish. Right, so I've had a number of people want to convert because of that. Because they have some Jewish blood. They have Jewish blood, so they want to be part of that. Okay, even though it's the wrong side, so it could be that's also something driving them who want to be Jewish, not because they came out of Christianity, which is most people. Most people I deal with. But again. The bottom line is anyone who wants to convert, it has to be 100%, even if they were somebody. Let's say they'd be with somebody that's Jewish. Yeah. So our rabbinical court would say, and they probably, make you not speak to each other until after conversion. But our rabbinical court, would say, well, if this person got hit by a bus tomorrow, you still want to be Jewish? And the person would have to say yes. I'm not converting for this person. A number of people I know have been in the situation where they were going to convert anyway, regardless, right, for years. They just happen to meet somebody, whatever. So, like, one thing has nothing to do with the other, right? They would have converted anyway. Okay, right? That has to be the answer. That regardless of what this person's going to do or whatever happens to them, if they get hit by a bus tomorrow, drop dead of a heart attack, you're going through this process anyway, right? That has to be the answer, right? If they see you waver or whatever, then they're going to think you're converting for the sake of marriage, right? That you can't do, right? There's no such thing as converting for any ulterior motives. Let me see. Growing at home in a flower pot is also not allowed. Right? Another way, if you had a mixture, right? Going back to a mixture here, even in your house, doesn't matter. You can grow in a flower pot. There are many that say that a flower pot that's, even if it gets nourishment in the pot, it gets something from the ground, it's forbidden. It'd be forbidden to do that also. Yeah. Even in a pot at home. Right? Even, let's say you didn't do it. I'll say even better. You can go to a flower store or whatever. where they sell plants, etc. And you could get either seeds that are from these grafted plants, or get a grafted plant itself, right? So even if you didn't do it, even better. Even if someone else did it, can I take it now and put it in my garden? Answer: no, not allowed to. Right? That's going to be forbidden. Whether you did it or not doesn't matter. Or the fact that someone else did it, right? That's forbidden. And since someone else did it, you should not benefit from it. Right? That's if you're taking the plant. That's if you're taking the plant and then you replant it. If they already had a tree, and they already have the fruit, so that I can get benefit from. But again, let's make clear: not everything that a person does, if it's forbidden to do, I can get benefit from. Certain things, yes; certain things, no. It depends. Again, it depends on the case. Someone says, "So let all your fruits or berries rot during Shemitah. You can't take them in, right? Right, right." I would, or let's say better. Let's say you planted something. Let's say you planted something. Now it's going to be ready to harvest. After sabbatical year starts, right? After Shemitah starts. So the question is, let's say, could you have a non-Jew? Let's say you had a non-Jew do it. Let's say you sold the land to him. Yeah, he does it. So now that fruit has sabbatical year. It's sabbatical year fruit. So there are certain ways how you're supposed to act with it and what you can do with it, right? But essentially, anything else, whatever's on the trees or whatever, right? Whatever comes off, then you could take it, but it's got sabbatical year status on it, right? But everything else, you got to leave fallow. After that, you got to leave fallow. You can't do anything with the land, right? Essentially. Yeah. Any other questions? Again, this gets more, complex, so to speak. Somebody asked, one second, if we eat sabbatical year fruit, it's not kosher. It's kosher, but you have to treat it with special reverence. Meaning, if you, let's say, an orange, an orange that was sabbatical year fruit, you're not allowed to throw the peel in the garbage. Right? What you do is you have what they call a shemitah peel. What's a shemitah peel? Whatever fruits that you have that are sabbatical year fruit, you got to let the peels rot. You got to, you leave them, in a trash bag, or you leave them in a plastic bag, whatever, right? And you can't throw it away directly. You can't throw it in the trash, even if you wrap it up in a whole bunch of different wrappings. You still can't do that. You are allowed. So what do you do? You take the peels, you put them in a bag, and you wait for the peels to rot. Right? Sounds very appetizing. You wait for the peels to start to rot. Once they start to rot, then you can throw them away. Right? If you had, let's say, sabbatical year wine, or something like that, right? Sabbatical year wine. So if you had sabbatical year wine, you got to make sure you don't spill it. Right? If you spill a little bit, you got to sort of lap it up, or figure out how you're gonna be able to drink it, right? Because that's wasting it, so to speak. So any sabbatical fruit, you're allowed to eat it. You just have to let the peels. You have to let the peels. You have to let the peels rot. Once they rot, you can send it. You can throw it away. So the next Shemitah year will be 4 years. Right? Will be in 4 years. So that is when? That is in 5788, right? Should be, we're in Pei Dalet, so yeah, it should be 5788. That's how it comes out, right? I had somebody once say, that told me a story. They were on a plane, and the person next to them said, "Yeah, I also keep sabbatical year. I have this garden, whatever." And so this person said, "Wow, that's so interesting because according to the Torah, according quote unquote the Bible, the Bible said it's only in Israel, only in the land of Israel. Sabbatical year only applies in Israel; doesn't apply anywhere else. Now, it could be sabbatical year fruit could end up outside of Israel, which is forbidden. By the way, even if they have sabbatical year fruit, they're not allowed to send it to outside of Israel, but it can be. It can be. If it's a sabbatical year, a person says, "Oh, I'm very strict to eat only, to eat Jaffa oranges because I want to, help support the Israeli economy." So there'll be two issues. One issue is it's sabbatical year fruit, right? If it's a sabbatical year, the other issue is true Ma'aser. Chief Rabbit is really in charge. They are in charge when they send fruit outside of Israel. It should have Truma Meiser taken. Tithe should be taken from it. Yeah, but it's been known. It's a known thing. They don't do that. Why? I'm not sure. Maybe it's manpower. Maybe at expense. I don't know. I don't know exactly why they don't do it. They should do it because any Jew that eats, fruits that comes outside of Israel, from Israel. I'm not talking about sabbatical year fruit. Any fruits that has, they should take truma ma'aser themselves, right? Because it's called tevel. It's never, it's never been tithed. So if it's never been tithed, you have to do it. So it's definitely putting a stumbling block in front of others. Why they do it, I can't answer. I don't know. Again, it could be expense, could be manpower, could be both. Right? I'm not exactly sure why, but for Jews, that puts a tremendous stumbling block in front of them. Right? Because I know somebody that'll do that. That if they see Jaffa oranges, they'll specifically buy it. They'll specifically buy it. Why? Because they want to help support Israel. Okay, but that's a problem. Right? I'm not saying supporting Israel is a problem. I'm saying that it never had Truma Meiser taken. And therefore, if they're going to take Truma Meiser, very good. Right? That'd be very good. But they're not going to. So since they're not going to, that's a problem. Someone asked a quick question about, we'll see how quick it is. Can ask a question about idol worship by the Christians. Yeah. So I talked about the golden calf, and you can't create any figurines and all that, right? Even if they're not worshipped. Now, how can I respond? Yeah. Even if because God detests idolatry. Look at the 10 Commandments. You can tell them the 10 Commandments. One of the 10 Commandments is don't make any graven images. Yeah. So you're not allowed to make any graven images, even if it's not worshipped. If it's worshipped, all the more so. Yeah. But making graven images is forbidden. So if you make something that's an idol, that for other people worship it, yeah. Yeah. You make a thing of JC. But no one's worshipped it yet. So what? You're making something that's forbidden to make. So that doesn't matter whether it's been worshipped or not. We hold you're not allowed to make it regardless. Right? So go to Exodus chapter 20 speaks about it. That's what it means. Don't make any graven images. Means even if they don't worship it. Even if it's not worshipped, you don't do it. All the more so if it has been worshipped. Right? You make a figurine inside, it looks exactly like JC, all these pictures of JC, whatever. You make something like that. That's forbidden. You're going to say, but it hasn't been worshipped. So what? It's a thing of idolatry. It's forbidden. Even if it hasn't been worshipped. Right? So we hold you can't do it. Yeah. You don't have to say just don't do it. That's the reason. That's the reason. You don't make graven images, whether they're worshipped or not. Right? We're not allowed to. That's what you tell them. If they don't like the answer, okay. That's a good answer. Right? That's a viable answer. Definitely a viable answer. Yeah. Any other questions? Or general questions? Let's see. They also say too many rules. Well, listen, if it would be a man-made religion, it would have been much easier to just make a few rules, right? Even if there are too many rules, so that doesn't mean anything. That for sure doesn't mean anything. You got to keep it whether there are 10 rules, 50 rules, or 1,000 rules. Right? Well, they say, listen, you don't have to convert. You can say a non-Jew, there are a lot less rules, right? Right? You can tell them that. You don't have to convert. If you want to convert, you get all the rules. If you don't want to convert, you get some of them. Yeah, you don't get all of them. And you can answer that. Right? And again, having too many rules doesn't mean it's not true. It's like, oh, I've heard that also. So again, if you believe God gave the Torah to Jewish people, commanded through Moses, and that's what he said to do, it's a divine command. They could say, well, quote unquote, your God made too many rules. Okay, maybe he did. So what? Doesn't mean it's not true. Doesn't mean it's not true, but we're following what God says. So God says you got to keep all these rules. Yeah, it's easy for a Christian. All they say, believe in JC. He came and fulfilled it. Yeah, so go ask him, how did he fulfill it? How did he fulfill what he says he fulfilled? Only bring in some proof. How did he fulfill it? They have convoluted ideas. Okay. Yeah. But anyone who's ever kept the Torah and kept all the mitzvahs has kept the Jewish people together. That's the only thing that's kept the Jewish people together. People, so you can tell them, people who wanted to keep less things and less rules, they disappeared. If they kept all the rules, that's the only thing keeping them together. Right? It's the only thing keeping Torah together. It's people keeping Torah. It's all the mitzvahs that we do. Because if it's watered down in any way, no one's going to keep it. Who's going to keep it? Mentioned this in my class on 13 Principles of Faith. Right? If it's relative, I feel like doing it, I don't feel like doing it, I'll change it, whatever it's going to be. Very good. Then no one who's going to keep it. It's not going to bind anybody. So you can tell them if you only had a few rules, but there's nothing binding me to keep it, then why would anyone keep it? And that's what you see, 60, 70% intermarried. Right? You can tell them that. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Saturday, 2:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook. I have Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com. Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Torah portion of the week, which I haven't done for a while. Ethics of Our Fathers, Q&As, Book of Leviticus. If you want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBI. CHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. We're having a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the